Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great, Mike G. How are you?
Very, very well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
No, all good, man. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Oh wow. Well, listen, you're very much part of the team behind this phenomenal creative explosion that is Kneecap.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I'm talking to a friend.
Oh man, I loved it so much. I didn't
Oh,
want it to
amazing.
end. I just wanted
Oh,
more.
wow, wow, wow. And so am I sensing a bit of an accent?
Yeah, there's a Celtic
Ah,
connection there. I'm Scottish, so yeah. But I weirdly as well, I spoke to the boys yesterday, and I was telling them that I used to do a radio show on Radio One with a Northern Irish presenter called Colin Murray, and
oh
so I
yeah.
spent every day, Monday to Friday, doing a live radio, and we're still really good friends, for 5 years of my life. So I don't know, I have this lovely connection with Belfast and with that
Nice,
history and with that world.
nice,
Um,
nice, nice.
but listen, this film's just it's such a firecracker and it's something that's so refreshing actually because it's funny. I was having this conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago about how um our musicians are not as kind of politicized or opinionated or driving change or driving people
Hmm,
to not necessarily kind of telling them to make the right choices, but
sure.
just to, I don't know, give them the facts and give them the
Hmm.
information. You know what I mean? And I
At
feel
least,
like,
at least a different perspective. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the many things that I loved about the film and the boys and just the whole energy of the thing. How did you come to be involved in the project?
So initially, I'd been asked to do the show first off. I'll say
Yeah.
it like that. But I wasn't available, right? I had was working another show called Free Your Mind with Danny Boyle and my dance company Boy Blue up in Manchester.
Yeah.
So we started working on that, and I'd committed. So I'd committed to that. So I said the times that they were trying to do stuff, it didn't 100% work. So
Yeah.
I said I couldn't do it. Then yeah, time passed. I think they used a couple of people. They worked with a couple of people, but I just guess it wasn't gelling. And next minute, I got a call and they said, "How can we make this work?" And pretty much, I knocked it. Well, the main kind of vein of what it needs to be, probably in 30 days of November last year. So yeah, but in between that, it was meeting Rich. In between that, it was then going to Belfast to see the boys,
Yeah.
and they were really trying to sell me. They said, "We think you can achieve this." And I was like, "I'm not too sure. I hope I can." But yeah, watching it and everything, yeah, it just felt like something I definitely could add my voice to.
And what was the thing for you in terms of that you connected with, would you say, in terms of, hearing them, hearing what they were doing already, hearing their story, meeting them as well? What was the thing for you that you wanted to be part of it?
If I'm honest, from the jump, and I think this is part of the journey, which is really great because like the track that well, the name of the track is called Ceasefire Babies. It's the one that they use as the promo.
Yeah.
You hear that story that you just never ever heard before. The notion of, yeah, once us as Brits anyway, once we heard, ceasefire is now there, we didn't think about so what happens next.
Mm.
And it was really a sense of I wanted to make sure I did a good job because I realized how important it was for them,
Yeah.
in terms of the storytelling, in terms of the journey that they've all kind of been through as young Irish men, and where they're going and how hip hop, which is always great to see hip hop as an essence or an element that helps supporting them to have a voice. So more than anything else, it was just I wanted to do a good job and make sure that what they wanted to achieve, I was able to kind of connect that truth for them.
One of the things that I love about the music and the quality of the production and stuff, both within the film, is that there feels like there's a real affinity and admiration for um the history of hip hop in terms of the beats that are being used
Yeah.
and even the instrumentation, in terms of that's when the 808 comes out on, as part of the narrative and things like that. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of it's old school. Things that are embedded in the history of that genre of music, and I love that that's very much part of their music, their journey within the film.
Yeah, I think what you're kind of landing on is the notion of going to what your original point was what was the original point of hip hop as an element. It was there to allow people in a specific part of town with specific problems the opportunity to be able to speak, and
Mm.
knowing that an art form from there. And I think they've spoken about it, even in the film they speak about what it did for the young black youth in America. Then I think about what it's done for me in the UK and how then it's transformed and turned into our own genres. And then
Yeah.
at the same time, yeah, to know it's done that, it just shows you the truth of what music can do, and the truth and the power of hip hop as a voice for the voiceless.
There's a brilliant line in the film as well where that mentions Dr. Dre, which I just like proper belly laughed out loud, where it's like, well, excuse me for holding you back or something for your meeting with Dr. Dre. And it's just there's
Yeah.
just kind of all these little kind of little moments and I just yeah, I kind of love that because there's obviously it's contemporary and it's now, but
Mm,
it's almost kind of slightly timeless. I think it could have been set in the in the 90s or whatever, in
true,
terms of
true.
the music that they're making, and I really love that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really the it's authenticity at the
Yeah,
end of it all. Even though they deal with some challenging concepts, right, in the show, both, whether you talk about drugs specifically or the notion of the political aspects of their upbringing.
yeah,
It's done in an authentic way, which allows you to kind of say, okay, I accept that, I'm going with it, and you choose to not, I guess, in the way that, number one, let's take a moment for the fact that these people aren't actors. They've had to learn, this skill. All three of them are just exceptional. And JJ, man, he is like incredible in it. I when I first met
yeah,
JJ, I was like, so are you an actor? And he goes, no, he was one of the
yeah.
one of the band. And I was like, what? Like, oh, like seriously, I know you're part of the band, but wait, hold on a second. Have you ever done that before? But yeah, more than anything else, they're just being authentic about it. So you say, okay, I'm gonna listen to that truth and I'm gonna allow it to be a part of my viewing experience without any judgment.
Yeah. It's so true. And also asking non-actors not just to act, but to play a version of themselves.
Yeah,
It's like that's not easy.
it can't be, no.
Yeah.
But I think that's where, Rich and the boys, in terms of their journey,
Mm.
that's where that kind of came, because I know that they consistently, would challenge Rich with the idea of how, what things should sound like, what things should look like. And they have had that interplay, which obviously shows itself well on screen.
Yeah. And the album's out, which is great. And the album's this wonderful kind of introduction to, so it will be an introduction for so many people into their music. But it also encompasses lots there's quite a few other artists on there as well, whether it be Fontaine's DC
Mm,
featuring on there as well. And I love that within the album they've also included, because I remember watching Good Morning Vietnam. And
okay.
I listened to that on cassette like non-stop when I was like kind of younger.
Okay.
And uh and I love how on the soundtrack for it they included little clips of when Robin Williams was doing those kind of radio,
Mm,
bits, time to rock you from the Delta to the D, all that stuff was on before it went into the tracks. And they've done that on this as well, which
yeah.
is great in terms of those little clips of so it just really kind of immerses you in the world even more, which is
Yeah.
it's such a great idea. How involved were you in the, in the construction of everything that's on that album, in terms of, yeah, I mean, what's on it and how it sounds really?
Yeah, so obviously I came in later in the game. I
Yeah,
would definitely say Toddler T, he was the main driving force by the album, and for the album. So by the time I've come to meet them, the album was complete. And if anything, I just drew inspiration of what the track should sound like,
yeah,
the original score's point of view,
yeah,
to make sure that there was that marriage between what's their tracks and what actually has to happen to drive the story across.
yeah.
So more than anything else, yeah, it was just kind of deciphering which tool bag to use, and the album helped to kind of do that. And they gave me access to all the parts, but I tried my best to kind of let that be what it is and try and create something fresh directly for the film and the narrative journey, of course.
Yeah, and I imagine within that the conversation is that there are so many kind of variables that you have to consider within that. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's the environment, the emotion within the scene, you know, where that scene's going, where it's come from,
Yeah,
and maybe, you know, whether there's it's kind of bookended by music in itself, sort of thing. So,
yeah,
you know, it's there's a lot for you to consider
yeah.
to craft what you're you know what you're making.
Yeah, it's thinking about what is the subgenres of hip hop and kind of deciphering whether or not that one is the right one to use. A good example is the cue, which I call Run, which is the scene where, you know, they get met by the police at the illegal rave. And
Yeah.
then by the end of it, um, you know, Norsha's like at the bus stop, and you know he's too high to kind of see everything, and everyone's like the same material as the bus and all of that. Like that, the notion of using the drum and bass to kind of get the pace, and then taking it, even though maybe it's a bit more cliche, using kind of the bashment sound to kind of give that psychedelic vibe and energy that makes it feel like clouds are above their heads, you know. So just deciphering which sounds will give the scene the perfect edge, but keep it still in that playbook of hip hop and the subgenres that exist around it.
Absolutely, because there are so many of those kind of moments where, you know, them as a band where they're creating themselves and you know, they're probably inebriated in some way, shape, or form from some kind of, you know, from something. But obviously clearly not in, you know, anyway, I'll
Yeah,
leave that. But yeah.
it's acting.
They're
It's acting.
acting. Of course
Yeah,
they are. They're using that personal experience, real life experience they had into this performance.
uh-huh.
But it's that it's all those moments as well. Do you know what I mean? That you have to color them well and color them right around how those characters are reacting and what's mental state they're in and all that kind of stuff as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I think more than anything else, as I said, the tool was, yeah, just thinking about the subgenres, considering the tempo, considering like even you, taking Run again as an example. I had to go back into my time as a 14-year-old and think about what is the right kind of vocal chops that need to be in that. What is the breakbeat from that era that I need to call upon to kind of bring into this moment? Because yeah, that style is so much drum and bass per se is very, very different to what it is was then than it is
Yeah,
now. But I
yeah.
really wanted to kind of harp on the nostalgic element for the sake of the film and that of its strong roots with the next track, which is yeah, you know, it's all from the same dancehall space. You know, that's what drum and bass is kind of built from. So that was really, really cool, kind of having to use my experience as a youth to kind of bring that into the show for today.
Yeah, I mean, I was when I was about 14, similar age, we were talking about 3 Feet High and Rising was the album for me that I could not get. I used to go to this little club in Dunfermline called the Kronk that just they would just play like as much of the album as they could. I was totally underage, hiding underneath the DJ booth sort of thing, but just like, oh, I just couldn't get enough of it. And there are elements kind of within, you know, with that album and its kind of storytelling and its narrative that it kind of takes you through that I think that I kind of really saw a lot or felt a lot of the almost like the beautiful kind of production in that within this film as well in terms of kind of yeah where it's taken me.
Wow. You're taking, you know, that's a compliment that I don't know how to really take, really, more than anything else.
Oh,
But I think more than anything else, as I said, it was the authenticity. It was kind of
yeah.
focusing on the fact that hip hop is our driver. How can I best, you know, represent number one that vibe, number two, the culture in terms of their culture and that of hip hop in their mother tongue, and then also yeah, the authenticity of the story. You know, it all was just so cool. You know, it came about and became such a cool thing to work on. And I had no expectations. I'm guessing they would have said the same to you. We had no expectations that it would have this kind of riotous response.
Yeah, it's infectious. That's what it is. It's kind of, you know, they're that kind of like lovable rogue type sort of thing. It's, you know what I mean? I mean
Yeah,
they're one step further than that, but I don't know. I just I loved it. And I was really kind of impressed as well when we were talking yesterday about how much of their real story is in there.
Yeah.
how much of them is actually in this film and how much of that story is them and their experiences in their lives.
I mean, did you manage to stay to the credits?
Yes, and I
So,
that the shot of his christening, oh my
yeah,
god. You're
you know
like,
what I mean?
"No way."
Was that real? That was the
Yeah.
first thing, yeah, that Liam kind of told me about Noisha, in the sense that, because I met him first before Noisha kind of popped up. But
Mm.
more than anything else, it was like, yeah, they said that actually happened. There was the bending of the truth is in there for sure, but a lot of it is kind of based on their true experience and their true reality. I think that's what makes it so lovable in a roundabout way, because you can believe that this could potentially happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you're such an interesting, character in terms of this lovely kind of it's so refreshing as well when you see artists that kind of push outside of that kind of expectation of being pigeonholed into things. And that's
Yeah,
something that you kind of really, definitely do. You don't fit in one box, considering the amount and the variety of work that you do. And I wanted to, if you didn't mind, just talking a little bit about Boy Blue. Because I think quite a lot of people won't it's just nice to get the opportunity to kind of talk about it and kind of
100%.
celebrate it as well and stuff. And I was just really interested about what was the inspiration about setting it up, really.
I mean, in part, there was always this love for dance for me. I danced up until like 23 years old, only because I thought music was the thing I needed to focus on, and
Yeah.
and I proved my 23-year-old self has proved my 44-year-old self that, yeah, that was the way to go, Mike. Um, but on the flip side, it was like, yeah, my friend who is my business partner, Ken, I saw what he was trying to do and trying to develop as a dancer, and I said, yeah, let's turn this into a thing, because I actually wanted to support him. I wanted him to have something solid for himself, and build that. But then also we had this massive community energy, where
Yeah.
these young people, found whether it was the opportunity to kind of find something new and fresh for themselves. Some of them we did catch because there was girls in there. They're like, there's girls there, so the boys came, and the next minute they got intrigued and wanted to dance and stay. And then some people, yeah, they're battling all the other things, and dance for them was a massive release. And so the more and more we kind of responded to our community, the more and more it seemed that this responsibility was important.
Yeah.
So we continue to kind of make that grow, and then the shows turned into one show, turned into two shows, turned into three shows, and then, yeah, 23, 24 years later now, that company's been running, and we've done big events like the Olympics. We worked on that with Danny at the 2012 Olympics in the big scene, called Thanks Tim, which was
Mm.
talking about Tim Berners-Lee. And then, yeah, we've done our own shows, like most recently Cycles, which is just a hip hop event, and a vibe that kind of hit us and is at the Barbican. So, yeah, you don't really say you've got a plan. You just try and have a go, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden it just turns into a whirlwind of different things. But
Yeah.
Boy Blue has always afforded me, like you said, that opportunity to kind of do something else, because where I'm from, essentially, at that time, they just wanted us to make records that fit that 3 minute mark, that 4 minute mark. And I
Yeah.
always had an idea which was expanded. I wanted to make 90 minutes worth of score, right? I didn't know it was score at the time. So it definitely helped and informed where I'm at today with stuff like Kneecap, for sure. And really, it must be honing my skills, at least, to kind of allow for our music, meaning hip hop music, and that of its subgenres, to be able to fit inside, a show, a film such as Kneecap.
Yeah. And when it comes to theater as well, it's been a big part of your career as well, in terms of creating for theater. What do you love about that medium of expression?
Oh man, it's the visceral nature of the direct response,
Mm.
and the fact that each one, meaning show, can be different each time. Even though, yes, my stuff is on a Q lab, it gets pressed, you just don't know how it's gonna affect, and that's the difference, right? The
Mhm.
difference between me meeting you maybe 10 years from now, and talking about a record that I did that really affected you, and seeing that happen in the space, having that energy fill you and hit you in the space, and then watching the artist grow as well, right in front of your eyes, taking the role on. The theater world has always been so exciting to me, because it's a box, and in that box we have to transport you. So I've
Yeah.
always very, very, very privileged that I'm able to work in that scene for sure.
Where do you start though when you're working on something, that is so has been is revered and has been so many it's been, it's been interpreted so many times, something like Romeo and Juliet,
Okay,
in terms of giving that a kind of, yeah,
an
and that's,
identity.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you start obviously with the director's vision, and for argument's sake, working on Romeo and Juliet most recently with Jamie, um, he first comes and tells me this is what I'm thinking and feeling, and then I go, okay. Um, I try and interpret that into some kind of sonic signature.
Mm.
But more than anything else, it's just that tugging and pulling of trying things, sending it across and seeing if it works. So generally, you move and you start with a sense of the first things you're going to send are going to be rubbish and no one's going to like them. That's the kind of attitude you have to have. You have to kind of know that nothing is precious at this moment until we create, and what I call it is making the pen. So
Hmm.
I break the pen from the other show and I have to make a whole new pen for this new show, and then finding that language as we go along. So to be honest, it's really exciting, but then also on the flip side, yeah, it can be nerve wracking. In the sense that what you could have spent 2 3 weeks on certain things and then it's just not working and you have to do something fresh. But yeah, I mean, slyly as well, you do put you try your best to put the noise of all the other productions aside and try and focus on what the storytelling needs to be in this circumstance.
Yeah.
And what Jamie wanted to do that time was a little bit darker. He took a spin of Romeo and Juliet to kind of say, when we think about certain conversations and scenarios surrounding what was going on, it looked more like this to him. So it had more of a
Yeah.
darker tone. So then instantly the pen started being fashioned to be a little bit more darker.
Brilliant. I haven't seen it yet, but is it still on? I hope it's still on. Is it?
No, and I
No, it
don't think it
finished.
will come back. Yeah, I don't think it
Ah,
will come back. It was very,
gutted.
very different. Very, very,
Yeah.
very different telling. I think some people really, really liked the way he broke um, the 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 energy, but some people missed the pomp and circus of what
Okay.
Romeo and Juliet usually is. But
Yeah.
it's what you get from a Jamie Lloyd show.
Yeah. I am, yeah, I've, I grew up and didn't really, theatre wasn't really accessible for me from my little fishing village in Scotland. And, but it, particularly the last couple of years, I think well, I definitely went quite a lot pre-COVID, but post-COVID, I've just been quite hungry for it.
Great.
I saw that amazing Dorian Gray
Okay.
with Sarah Snook from Succession, and
Yeah,
that
I
was
never got to see that.
mental and
Yep.
amazing. Like literally, you come out, you're going, how? Have we done that?
Yep.
Oh, it's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
And what's next? Do you have a whole kind of succession of things kind of that you're working on, all those plates spinning, things thrown at you, and you're going, yeah, I'll try that. Let's do that.
I do, and it's always challenging in these circumstances because it's how much can you talk about, you
Yeah, of
know?
course, yeah. I have that every
Yes,
episode where it's like, so, and they go, can't tell you.
yeah. I mean, I'll put it to you like this: there is something on TV that I'm working on that will be coming out
Right?
sometime this year. There is well, actually, the album for the last show we did called Cycles from a Boy Blue Perspective, that's going to be released in a week. So on the 31st, 30th, sorry, that should drop. And yeah, that's just a vibe, hip hop piece of music. Um, and then, yeah, there is another theatre production that should be happening by the end of the year as well. So all three spaces, other than film, there's something at least
Wow.
Mikey's been involved in.
Wow. Amazing. I'm going to come and see whatever that new theatre thing is for sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
for
one's
sure.
that one's pretty big, and it will be on the West End. But yeah, just give me a knock, and then I'll let you know.
I'll get you back on so we can have another chat about it and the TV show as well, for sure.
It's no problem.
Please.
No problem.
Listen, it's so great to chat to you. I really appreciate your time and huge congratulations. Such an
Thanks.
important part to the experience of Kneecap, which I said to them yesterday, I was like, I hope there's a sequel because I want more. And I'm gutted I'm not at Reading and Leeds this weekend to
Ah,
watch them live as well.
that has been shocking seeing because yeah, I mean, music does what music does, but people
Mm,
probably can't understand what they're saying in part if they're not from that part of the world from where they're.
yeah.
But you can just see how no matter what, it's so infectious. You need to see a live show.
Yeah.
It's wicked. It's
Yeah.
wicked.
I
Yeah,
think I'm going to head up to the Barrowlands in Scotland. That's
good,
going to be a good one, I think.
perfect.
Mikey, so lovely to chat to you and get to meet you. And huge congratulations on this wonderful journey you've been on so far. And I look forward to seeing where it takes you as well. And we
Oh,
get to
I
chat again.
appreciate that. Thank you very, very much, Edith. No, thanks for your
Yeah.
time.
Have a great day. Take care.